Children, welcome back. Hi, everybody. So, let's just get into it because we don't have a whole heck of a lot of time, children. So, we're doing imaging. So, one of the first things that I wanted to do with this is, and you can kind of hear this if we get out of the ghost zone, is everything's kind of right on top of itself. If we listen to just the full mix here. Like, the hats are moving around a bit. This percussion here, I think. Yeah, you can hear that, like, actually taking up some space. But they're kind of the widest thing we have. So I might use this as a framing element, but first I'm just going to try and identify the problem. So one of my first moves is to come in here on what would be like the first part of the verse or the chorus, whatever section I want. And something that's meaningful, not like the intro. We're trying to find the nugget. We know this if we're in the approach. It's all about quantifying the most important parts of the song. So the first verse here is very important to me. It's got all the elements playing. So it's a great place to sort of dig around to find your issues. So for starters, now you can really hear everything's really on top of itself. And if I go into mono, you'll really hear how mono this is. We get a little bit of ambience pop up. See? A little bit of ambience, but mostly it's like it's this. Where's that synth that? I think it's this kid. Yeah. That kid's in there. And that kid. So we lose the reverbs, and if you've been with us in the earlier sessions, if you watched some of last week's streams, you understand that there's no way to get into mono and maintain a lot of depth and detail in proper stereo reverbs. They just fold down to mono, and a lot of them phase cancels because they're true stereo. It's a real room. You won't have a mono room. There's no such thing as a mono room. And unless you're making reverbs with plates or springs, the reverb itself isn't very mono compatible. So you lose some of that depth. But for the most part, the music is like right in the middle. It's like right down the plate. So you get some of that width, you get a little bit of depth and detail, but for the most part, like our main vocals, our ad-libs, and they're like a little panned, maybe to make some space. Not a bad idea, but it's still kind of all right up in here. And we got these kids, they're opposite panned. So you can see them like taking up some additional space. But it's just like not enough dispersion. And you can see the kind of boundaries that we actually have accessible to us with a hat like this. Which is like, this is now playing at pretty much your most wide area that you can create in your stereo field. This is our boundary. So my first move for me is to say, like, let's go back to just the understanding that the production is fairly well stacked on top of itself. And it's not just stacked, and we can get into this a little bit in another lesson, it's not just stacked in distribution in the stereo field, it's also stacked in frequency response. So if I do solo this vocal group, you'll see that for the most part, again, if we go back into Insight, all the ad-libs are kind of hidden in the body. All the ad-libs have the top and the bottom, and this is a pretty standard hip-hop approach, is to like take the top and take the bottom off the ad-libs and affect them heavily. But that means they kind of live inside of the main vocal. And that makes it difficult for you to be able to intelligibly hear them when the mix is going, especially when it's really loud. So one of my first moves is to start to sort of unpack this level of everything on top of itself here. So for starters, what I'm going to actually go to, understanding the problems, now that I've got that sort of internalized, I've taken a cursory look at what's here, we've listened to it in stereo, and we've soloed the ghost zone meaning we're listening to only the sideband, but we're doing so in mono, which I know is maybe a lot to unpack, but like if we listen to this like this, and I turn this back on again, and I undo the monoing feature, it's weird. It's like it's in your head. It's really uncomfortable and difficult to digest. This is something you understand. Mono signals are really simple for our human brains to get. So we do this in mono, and then we listen to the full mix in regular mono. We say, and we can tell now right away that we have pretty good mono compatibility, which is great. That's good information. And so now what I'd like to do is again, I want to start unpacking this. I want to start taking everything that's stacked on top of itself and distributing energy. And one of my favorite moves right away is to get into the sub bass and spread it out, because we have kick in the sideband. And that's a framing device. That's a dot to connect to. If you're in the approach, you know we connect dots. You can hear that kick in the sideband. So one of my moves is to get in here to this sub bass and connect that dot. And so if I solo this, again, we're listening to only the sideband now. I'm going to grab one of my favorite tools, which is the no-clip imager. This is very literally a pretty simple setup here. It's 2 gain stages, 1 down and then imaging and then 1 up, and allows me to sort of turn things down into the imager itself. And so and the reason for that is that these things clip pretty easily, especially when you have like near full scale samples. And so I like to just kind of turn it down and give the imager some headroom. So it's really simple. It's just a normal Ozone 9 imager with a gain stage down and an equal gain stage backup afterward called the no clip. And then a macro mapping, so to just control those. So whatever down amount and up amount, they just cancel each other out. So here, I'm looking for the baseline. I want to make sure that if I'm going to spread content, I'm not affecting this lowest fundamental. I want whatever's up higher than that lowest one. And so what I'm watching for in the meters here is the line play out. And so you can see this lowest fundamental here, and you can watch it moving around. And you can see it jump up and then jump back down again and slide in and do all these things. So I'm looking for its highest peak in frequency, which is looking like around in this area here. I think the end of the line comes in and then it pulls up and it'll jump back down, it'll jump back up. There it is. And so we're looking like right up in here is where we're going to be able to grab these harmonics without getting any fundamental. And we're just going to watch this play out now. See, we catch the harmonic on this side of the band, still have the harmonic, fundamentals are all over here. And so these are our first partials or our first harmonics, first, second, third, fourth, whatever, and this is all fundamental. And so now what I can do is I can stereoize this and only affect the harmonics, and immediately there's that tone. And right away, you can start to hear it coming together in the sideband. And if we go back to our insight, you can start to actually see that content. And remember that spike? Remember that low frequency spike that we had in our reference? Let's go back to that real quick. Let's see if we can chew that onto the children. So this is our master reference. We're looking for that low frequency spike. And there it is. There's that low frequency spike. So we now are starting to end up with some of the similar content in the low mids with a very, very easy, simple set of tools. And I'm not even really listening for how wide something is. That's the nice thing when you're actually soloing the stereo content. I'm not listening for width. As Element pointed out, I'm actually listening for level now. Because by listening to the stereo content in mono, level is width. Make sense? So all I need to do is as we do in the approach, I'm connecting a mix referential dot. I am now going to tie that kick that already exists in the sideband to other low frequency content that I'm now adding into the sideband. And it's all about relative mixing.